What I wanted to talk about today is, although of course First American does home warranties, mainly for resale or used homes, we also do warranties for brand new houses, for new construction. So I wanted to talk about that real quick. Just, I feel like there's a lot of newer homes on the market right now, or more than resale homes, let's say that, right? And so on the back of our brochure, you'll see the new construction pricing, and it's $670. And so that's an amazing value, because what that is actually for 4 years of coverage. So it's less than $145 per year for the basic coverage. It typically can run 2 through 5, because most builders are going to do the 1-year warranty. We can also make it effective years 1 through 4. If that's something that your client wants to do. Sometimes they'll want to do that if it's a new home, but it's been used as a spec home or a model home or something like that. Like it's new, but it's a little used, I guess, if you want to put it like that. Gently used, right? So just, think about that. Systems that the home warranty covers still fail in newer homes, right? So for what would be, like I said, under $150 for each year that it's covered, it's an amazing value on the things that it does cover. It still has to be paid for at closing. So if it doesn't even start until the beginning of year 2, it still has to be paid for when they go to closing. So just kind of keep that in mind. Does anybody have any questions about that coverage? You can still build coverage. You can still add options, those sorts of things. The even better news is through the end of this year, we're running a promotion. It's $100 off. So instead of, that's where I was coming up with the math. Instead of it being $670, it's $570. Oh, wow. So I did the math, but I didn't tell you where I got it from yet. So it's under $145 for the year. So, and then another thing, I gave out some of these keychains, and I can give you more of them if you want them. It's a reminder that your clients can get the home warranty pricing that's in this brochure, which is always our best value, within 60 days of closing. So if they're not getting it from the seller, or they're not able to purchase at the date of closing, but if they've got a little bit of gap between, when they're getting out of their previous home and into their new home, and they want to use some of those funds to go ahead and purchase a home warranty, then they have that 60 days that they can still do it and get this best pricing that's available. So we're seeing a lot of clients doing that now as well. And I would just leave you to say is that I know you can close on a home without a home warranty, but should you allow your clients to do that? So, any questions? Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you so much, Trey. You're very welcome.
That on? It was on. There we go. You're good.
I don't use a microphone.
Okay, we good?
Yep, you're good.
Well, people on Zoom have to hear, right?
I know, I get it.
So, okay. Hello, everyone. Katie, thank you. Thank you for lunch. You're awesome. I've used Katie a bunch of times, and she's always quick to respond. So definitely put her on your preferred home warranty list. Thanks to everyone for coming. Hello to everyone on Zoom. So my name is Seth Schemahorn. As you can see, I'm a realtor with Pace of Richmond. I'm also the director of sales with the Pace of Richmond, which basically what I do in that role is I help coach the other agents on our team as well, and how they handle their clients and win deals and everything else as well. I'm an investor. I like to think of myself as I help other people also build their wealth. And I'm a dog-loving mountain biker. So I love my dog. She's the cutest dog in the world. She's the best dog. She was a terrible puppy, but she's a really great dog now. And then, yeah, I love Richmond for the outdoor environment. I've been mountain biking for a long time. That's, just kind of who I am and what I love. So today, part of the reason why I'm here, for those of you who don't know me, it's a quick introduction, but the reason why I think I'm standing up here and the one teaching this class is, the average realtor sells 8 to 12 homes a year, somewhere in there. And Nick and we just put house number 17 under contract for this year alone already. So I think there's a myth out there that I'm hearing a lot of realtors say, and they're going, this market's so crazy, you can't put people under contract, you can't win, cash is beating everyone. And I'm here today to one, teach you the things that we're doing that is being successful, and also tell you that all of that is a myth, and you shouldn't listen to it, because we're beating out cash offers, and we're not even the highest offer on a lot of the stuff that we're winning. We're just having really great conversations with our clients. We're setting expectations early with them and setting them up for success, because really that's what our job is in its entirety. It's like, my job's not to sell homes. My job is actually to advise and consult my clients and set them up for success. So that's what a lot of what we're going to talk about today is that. Hang on. Oh, there it goes. So I added this quote. I thought it was very relevant for today. So be bold, do what the ordinary fear. I don't know why, but there's a lot of things that I feel help you win a contract and win a multiple offer situation that a lot of other realtors don't do. And I think part of that comes down to fear or just a lack of understanding. And what I'm doing isn't even what I would consider out of the ordinary, but for a lot of other people, what we're compared to is out of the ordinary. So my advice to you is, in order to win contracts and win multiple offers, you need to think a little bit outside the box. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, actually not a little bit, we're going to talk a lot about what those items are, what you can do to win multiple offers. So be bold. Don't be fearful of anything. If you think it's the right thing to do, make sure you do it. Why is this not moving? There we go. Oh, we're clicking outside of it. So goals for the day. One, I don't think you can have successful conversations and win multiple offers unless you have a good understanding of the current market, because you have to have those conversations with your clients, and you can't do that unless you understand what the market's doing, what you're seeing out there, what the stats are, and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about when and how you should set expectations with your clients. For me, it is the very first phone call I have with them. If I get a referral from another realtor, if I get a phone call from someone that says, hey, looking to buy a house, I start right then setting expectations with them and asking questions and figuring out what they know, what they've heard, and all that. So we'll talk some about that. I hope at the end of today that you actually walk away with a system for how you handle multiple offers, or really just any offer in general. With Keller Williams, we're all about systems, leads, listings, leverage, and you've got to have systems in place for that. So I have a very structured system that, like, every offer I write, every multiple offer situation I go into, we follow. And so I'm going to share today, like, just what that is. I hope you take away 3 actionable items that you can use to go win. By actionable items, I also mean, I hope that you get some unique things that you can add into an offer, ways that you can win multiple offer situations. So that's our goals for the day, and hopefully you'll learn something. So let's talk about the market a little bit. I don't know if you have access to all of these stats. I just pulled these from Fast Stats yesterday. It's in your MLS. So whenever you first log in and that first page pops up, you'll see Fast Stats. Click on it, and then you can go get all of this stuff. So this is from the entire MLS. The biggest takeaways that I think you need to understand on here is, like, March 2021 to 2022, we are down 8.5% in new listings. So yes, inventory is down. We're still selling homes. So that's a myth that people say, we don't have inventory to sell. No, there was 2,101 new listings that sold. And how many of them actually sold? Closed sales, 1,622 homes sold in March. So don't believe it when people say you can't sell, because 1,622 homes did sell. But inventory is definitely down, but look at average sales price. We had huge growth from March last year, 12.7%. So your people, if you were in the business March of last year, if you remember, you probably had people complaining about the prices at that point. Call them tomorrow or today, later today, and tell them, hey, you got almost $50,000 in equity compared to last. How's that feel? Don't complain to me anymore about how you bought that house. I'm actually having those conversations a lot with people right now. Just like, look, you were so scared back then, but you're welcome. So that's entire MLS. This is Richmond City. The thing really interesting here, this is actually up 2.2% in March compared to last year. So Richmond City is almost flat year to date, only down 1.8% in new listings. I don't want to go deep into a conversation of like why that is, but you can definitely tell there's some COVID effects there, right? People are moving out of the city, getting more expensive. People are tired of the craziness of the city and what they're doing. Taxes go up, but the roads are still terrible. So average sale price actually went down in March, down 2.4%. And again, this is just Richmond City, very unique compared to what we're about to see in Henrico. Henrico is down 9.5% in new listings. Year to date, down 5.6%. I hope everyone here is taking notes because these should be stats that you're using when you're talking to your clients. Average sales price for Henrico up 16.4% March this year over last year, and year to date is up 9%. So people who bought last year, you have 9% more equity in your home than when you bought it. Those are great conversations to have with your clients. So people who are scared to buy now, like I have my own opinions of where I think the market is going and what's happening. People who bought last year, they have now 9% more equity to their net worth they can use. So if they bought in Henrico on average, of course, it's neighborhood dependent, do all that, do the research before you have the conversation, but on average, that's what we're looking at. And then Chesterfield was the big mover, 22.2% down in new listings for March this year and 16.2 year to date. So Chesterfield is like way behind. But look at your average sale prices. So basic economics, when supply is really low, demand is really high. Now your average sale price for March this year over last year is 11.7%, and year to date is up 13.8%. So your people who bought last year this time, 13.8% more equity in their homes this year than last year. That is some pretty insane growth. So make sure you're calling, and again, telling your people you're welcome. I'm glad we got it. So it's okay to gloat about yourself a little bit when you're talking to your clients. It helps build trust and respect. And then whenever they're ready to buy again, you can set expectations. So that way you have great conversations. Any questions before we go into setting expectations? I did kind of want this to be a little bit more of like kind of mastermind talk kind of thing. So any questions on market, where that's at, how to utilize those stats when you're having conversations?
I got one.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the other screen?
Which one?
That one. I have to hold the microphone.
Thanks.
People on Zoom got to hear you.
Okay. So the average, the percent of original list price received, I think that's a really important statistic to look at because 106% over list price is the average in our market down in Chesterfield. So that's a good conversation to have. Going on a listing appointment, it's really important that they know they're going to get over list. And how do you prove that? Right, 6.3% over list, and that translates to a lot of money on 400,000 as an average. So there you go.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Robbie.
super good point. We're going to get into that a little bit too, of like when you're having conversations of setting expectations with your clients and like what that looks like right now. But I use these stats all the time. So when I have buyers who are like, I don't know if I could ever pay over list price, I'm having two conversations with them, right? I'm talking about how list price has nothing to do with value. List price does not equal value. And so many people confuse that. So you've got to have that conversation, talk about what value actually is. And then I'm showing the stats and I'm actually showing the numbers and saying like, if you are very much against paying over list price, like you absolutely will not do it, probably not going to show you a house. Like until we can get more realistic, I can't be realistic either, right? So let's talk a little bit about setting expectations with your clients. So again, I start setting expectations in the very first interaction. I think the biggest thing here, and why I put it in bold, is get good at asking questions and then shut up and listen. I think so many people, especially realtors, we love to talk. With a lot of realtors, they're ego-driven. We love to chat. We love to talk about ourselves. Who doesn't love talking about themselves, right? So get good at asking questions and then stay quiet. So these are some of the basic questions I ask as a way of helping set expectations. So what is your motivation for moving? How serious are they? If it's more of like a curiosity move, like, oh, well, we'd move if we find the right place, if it's a deal, or something like that. like I'm categorizing clients based right now. Like, are they varsity? Are they JV? Like, where are they at in their buying? And somebody who is like, we're selling our house, it's on the market right now, we're under contract, I'm relocating for a job, and we need a house. That is a varsity player in my book right now, right? So figure out what their motivation is so you can better set expectations of how you're going to be handling them as a client. What have they heard about the market? I love this question. Absolutely love it, because everyone goes, man, I hear the market's crazy. I go, crazy awesome. So I always follow that up. And if you were telling your clients the market is crazy, stop. Like, unless you follow it up with the word awesome. Like, it is a great time to buy homes. It is a great time to sell homes. It always is, no matter what market you're in. So hear what they've heard about the market so you can also speak to that. What excites them about buying a home? You know, I love that question as well, because, you know, somebody who's talking about, I'm tired of paying rent. Well, now you can play into that motivation as well and what that looks like. Do they have any concerns? That is usually my last question, and that brings out everything you need to know. So I'm just afraid I'm not going to find a house. It's like, well, I've been selling real estate for a long time. I've sold hundreds of homes. I've never left anyone homeless. Why are you going to be my first? That's always my phrase back to that, right? So steal that, use it. What other concerns do they have? Can I afford a home? Should you even be answering that question? No. Who do you send that to? Your lender, right? Before we're going to talk about going into and doing a buyer consultation as another part of your step of like setting expectations. If you're not doing buyer consultations, start. Like, you have to do them in this market. You have to set expectations, and you should have them talking to a lender before you even do that. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But, you know, what other concerns are your clients, when you're talking to them, have about this market? Anyone? Anyone online? Sorry, what?
Crash.
A crash. Okay. What other concerns? Is that the biggest one?
Don't want to pay more than what the house is worth.
Don't want to pay more than what the house is worth. Okay.
They don't want to deal with multiple offers.
Okay. Don't want to deal with multiple offers. For those of you on Zoom who can't hear these people, does anyone have a good response? I don't want to be the one talking the whole time. So anyone have a good response? Let's start at the crash. Who's got a good response for that? I have mine. Who else has a good response for it?
I don't know what the response is, but what I've been telling people is that the conventional wisdom, everything we read says this market is entirely different than it was 10, 12, 13 years ago, and the reasons why, and that there's every expectation that while things may slow down and not be quite as competitive, that it continues to grow, that it's in the right place.
I like that. Anyone else? For me, I go back to get good at asking great questions and shut up. I'm worried about a crash. Okay. Well, I start asking questions. How long do you plan on staying in this house? Oh, man, we plan on being in this house forever. Okay, then why are you concerned about a crash? Right? Like, oh, we're going to stay in this house for 8 to 9 years. Okay, cool. Have you ever, you know, say the market does crash at that point and we're at the bottom of the market and you're ready to move again. Would you be okay holding it as a rental property and ride it out? Because markets always come back, right? And then that's where you go back to the stats. Historically, we get 4% appreciation over time on real estate. It's proven over years and years and years and years of history. So just, again, ask those questions. And part of the reason I love asking questions too is because if people self-realize and then they're bought into it, they're the ones telling you the right answer, right? But you got to make sure you get good at asking the right questions to get them to self-realize. So then you can set that expectation of, okay, well, here's the market that we're in. I don't want to deal with multiple offers. That one, just go, are you open to looking at homes that need more work? What if I only showed you homes that have been on the market for 8 days or more? I have a couple clients like that who, like, they don't want to get into multiple offers, or they really just don't have the cash to waive appraisals. So I'm like, I'm only going to show you homes that have been on the market more than 1 weekend. Because if it makes it through the first weekend, what happens? we've got a chance, right? Like, you're telling me there's a chance. So I literally set up their listing alert for not new active properties that come day one. It has to have a days on market longer than 7 or 8 days. So they're not seeing new listings, right? So there's always a solution to it. You've got to ask questions, find the concerns, and figure that out, right?
One thing I usually tell buyers or ask buyers to.
Hang on one sec, Robbie will run you a mic.
One thing I usually ask buyers is, I'll phrase it like, outside of the rumors, what leads you to believe that the market will crash or give you that fear that the market will crash? And then they'll start thinking about it. And I think it's a lot of topics out there that people just hear rumors and then it becomes fact to them.
Right.
So once I
They
ask
read the
that,
Facebook headline.
exactly. So once I ask that question, they're like, well, I've just been looking around, and then whatever they say from there, you can kind of just rebuttal with facts, like kind of like with the facts tracks, fast stats page, just rebuttal with facts on what's going on in the market. And usually it kind of brings them back down to, all right, we can get this done.
No. Yeah, I think people just have like heard crazy fear and stories from the past and so forth. And it's like, just ask the question, recognize it, and be able to handle that objection.
Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't listen to the Facebook headline. I love when my clients actually text me like a TikTok of some random bearded guy who's like, let's talk about the market crash in 2008. This happened, blah. And I just literally respond back and like, who is this guy? And they're like, well, I don't know. I found it on TikTok. I'm like, so you're going to trust that guy over me? We need to talk about your priorities. So I'm already terrible at like all social media. Adding in TikTok would be awful. And I would get so locked into it. I'd be like, this is amazing. I love watching the dance videos sometimes. Okay, cool. What other concerns do your clients have? Anyone come up with some other ones? I'm sorry?
I don't want to be homeless.
Don't want to be homeless. So I kind of said it a little bit earlier. I've been selling homes for years, sold hundreds of homes. I've never left anyone homeless. Why would you be my first? That's usually my response to that. And then people are always a little bit fearful when I go, have you ever been homeless before? Because some people have. I mean, I've actually met someone who said, I lived in my car for a while. I go into that with them. I ask more questions. Well, what happened? Tell me about that. What are your other fears that are around that? Like, don't ignore it. Like, if somebody's bringing it up, it's because they truly are concerned about it. So, like, go dig into that with them. Like, you need to understand the story because, again, you have to set expectations with your client. So you can't do that until you know the whole story so you can speak to them the right way, right? All right, let's talk about buyer consultations because this is another huge part about setting expectations. Again, who in here is not doing buyer consultations with their clients? We're gonna shame you. Yeah. So who is doing buyer consultations? Every hand should be up right now, right? I should have asked that the other way. Who's doing buyer consultations? Those who didn't raise your hand. So do buyer consultations. Take a class on buyer consultations. This is not a class on that. So if you need help on that, take the buyer consultation class. We've got an Ignite class for that. We've got presentations already built in Command and all that kind of stuff. So go utilize that stuff. This is not what my entire buyer consultation is. I'll preface that. This is just the things that I think are really important for like setting expectations. So one, they should already have talked to a lender by this point, unless they're cash, right? So you have your initial conversation with them, you're learning about their situation, kind of checking things out. Hey, how do you plan on paying for this house? Oh, you're getting a mortgage? Great. Do you have a lender? You need me to connect you to one. Hopefully, you can explain why it's good for them to talk to your preferred lender because you've already gone and vetted your lender and had conversations with them of the conversation you need your lender to also be having with your clients to help set expectations. I had coffee meetings with all of my preferred lenders to say, when I send somebody to you, this is what I want you to do. This is the conversation I need you to have with them. If you haven't done that with your lender, go do it. Tell them, like, I need you backing me up and saying, like, hey, appraisal waivers are happening. This is what that looks like in your situation because of your cash on hand. This is what you can potentially do. You're putting 10% down. If we need to, why don't we adjust that to 8% and we free up a little cash? And that only adjusts your monthly payment by $10 to $12 a month. Are you comfortable with that? Like those are the conversations I want my lender having with my clients. So find a good lender who you can send to who helps you set expectations. So I put that tip on there. We've got a couple lenders who do a great job at that. So whenever I circle back with them, that conversation is so much easier and they understand it. Do a full needs analysis. What exactly do you want in a home? Where do you want it to be and so forth? And then does what they want and what they can afford match? Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels and wasting time. So if they won't go outside of a location that they can't afford, like, how do I classify them? They might not even be JV at that point, right? Like they're like practice team, like water boys, like, you know, like equipment manager somewhere in there. So make sure you're really paying attention to that and you're having those conversations. Talk about the market conditions, like we talked about. So once I've learned all about what they want in a home and I've gotten them dreaming and we're having that conversation, then I go into the market conditions. Hey, homes are selling for 15 to 20% above the list price right now with inspection waivers and appraisal waivers. What scares you? Then we go into that conversation and dig into it. So again, what do offers typically look like? How comfortable are they with those conditions? If somebody says, I won't pay over the list price, you got to dig into that kind of thing. Find solutions for their concerns. We talked about all the concerns here, and we came up with a few ideas of how to handle those, right? So hopefully everyone took notes on that. And then the last thing is explain your process. Do not let your client control the situation here. Do not let your client run this. You are the realtor. You are the professional, you are the expert. You have your system. And if you don't have a system, you need to create one. But it is your system and you do this. So my quick pitch, whenever I go through that, because I have Nick, who's my showing assistant, I go, look, we've got financing figured out. You know the market, you know what things look like. I'm going to set you up on a listing alert, and I'm also going to be sending you homes as well. The homes that you see on there that you like, you're going to text. I'm going to put a group text together with me and Nick and you. You're going to text us. Nick's going to go do research on the home. We're going to check and make sure that this is a viable option for you to buy. What I mean by viable option is your budget is $400,000 max. We're probably not going to go look at homes that are listed at $399 right now, right? Still send them to us. We'll check them out. Are they overpriced? Is there a chance that there won't be other offers? Cool, we'll check on that. But I want to make sure we're looking at viable options so that way you don't get worn out and feel discouraged by losing in the market. The homes that you like, we'll go see in person. We'll set up showings. Homes that you love, we'll make offers. That's when the baton comes back to me. My forte is I negotiate contracts. I build relationships with listing agents. They love working with our team because they know we do a fantastic job. And I'm going to negotiate the deal for you and put you under contract. Once you're under contract, and then I go up to our next system step. So that's the quick pitch. And if they don't agree to fall within that line and that system, I may or may not work with them. Or I'm having another conversation about what is it about that you're not willing to do, right? Or what problems do we have? Or what is your unique situation that we need to figure out, right? So set expectations. So again, what does anyone else do in their buyer consultation that might be a little bit unique where you set expectations or what do you say? There's a lot of really good talent in this room and no one's talking. I'm going to start just handing Sarah the mic. Because I know she doesn't do that. Anyone? Yeah.
I think you got to think about the expectation of the hours that you work, the times that you work, obviously.
You want to set that up with them to make sure they know.
Say that again for all the people on Zoom.
As far as your expectation of the times that you work during the week, during weekends, whatever that may look like for you individually, I think you should sell that to your buyers also.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I definitely let people know kind of, when I work, what nights I work late and so forth. And also let them know how that expectation of what you work and how that ties into this market as well. Hey, I've set this up, like I tell people all the time, I have hired Nick as my showing assistant because this market moves too fast for just me. So he's available to show you homes and get you in there. So you, as an individual agent, say you don't have a showing assistant. How many other agents are in this office? How many of these agents are willing to possibly show a home for you, right? It's not just you. So you have that same pitch. Part of the reason I love Keller Williams is where all boats rise with the tide kind of company. And so if I'm not available, I'm going to find somebody who can show you a home. Don't ever worry about the speed of the market. I'm going to get you taken care of, right? So don't feel like just because I have a showing assistant, I got a leg up. You have a leg up because you got 200 other agents in this office. And every time I've ever needed help, somebody stepped up to help. And Patrice will help find that person who's going to help as well, right? Everyone gives Patrice a round of applause. Cool, yeah.
So you were talking about controlling the consultation, right? So I set an expectation at the end and I give them homework. I put the ball in their court, make them accountable to do their work and their side of the transaction so that I can do mine. So I'll tell them, you need to go home, do your wish list. You need to contact the lender, make sure the payment's comfortable for you, and report back to me. You tell me when you're ready to go out. So that way I can schedule things a little bit easier with them.
Yeah, make them have a little skin in the game. Right?
Yeah, I
It's
like
like,
that.
hey, how about you give me $100 deposit
Right.
and I'll give it back to you once you've done your homework.
Right.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to managing the time, and I've got to do better about that. 'Cause just recently, I had a client to send a text at 4 a.m. And then the next day, she said, "Oh, I apologize for sending that early." And I was like, "Well," to myself, "Were you expecting me to answer at 4 a.m.?" So I've got to do a better job at setting those expectations.
Yeah, and for me, that conversation, like you can text me, call me whenever you want. I'm only gonna answer, respond back whenever I'm available, right? Like,
I have a question I want to ask you.
So this class is about winning offers,
Mhm.
but you're talking about, like, you're spending a lot of time talking about buyer consultations.
Mhm.
So like connect the dots for someone that's like, I don't get it. Like, I thought this was just gonna be about negotiations, what I put on the contract, like, why do I have to do all this work on the front end? What does that even matter? This is a class about winning offers.
got it. Perfect. Great question. And thanks for reminding me. I should have actually connected that dot at the very beginning. The reason why we're talking a lot about setting expectations with your clients, because like you have to get your client willing to do the things necessary for this market. Plain and simple. Like that is the conversations I'm having. Like you will never win a multiple offer situation if you have an unrealistic client. Like you might get lucky. But who wants to really, like, do we ever run our business based on luck? Like, no, this is Keller Williams. We are systematized. We know how many conversations you need to have to convert a lead to get the right amount of GCI, right? You should know that number. Like we are very systematized. We know what's going on. We set expectations. We live in reality. You need to get your client to reality. So that's why we're having this conversation. Because when I go to write an offer with my client and I go, hey, in order to win this house, like I called a client yesterday, they're interested in this house and we're not even writing an offer on it yet, but I call them, I said, if you're interested in that house, I don't even want to talk to you unless you're willing to waive inspections, waive appraisals, and you're probably going to escalate $100,000 of the list price. Are you guys there? Cool. Sounds like you guys need to have a conversation over dinner tonight and I'll circle back tomorrow, right? Like you have to have those conversations and that's the be bold and do what's out of the ordinary, right? I think there are a lot of realtors who don't have those hard conversations with their clients. You have to do it. Like you have to. John, I think you raised your,
What did they say? Oh,
go Antoine, and then we'll go John.
It's awkward now. To piggyback off what Kristen said, for the homework, I give a little bit of pre-work for buyer's consultation. Because I usually just go straight through the guide, pretty much. We go over certain pages that I think are really, really important. We'll spend a little bit of time on. But I've also been noticing when I'm going over buyer consultations, people don't really come up with the real questions that they want to ask while we're going over it. So what I'll do is before we set our date and time that we're going to go through our buyer's consultation, I'll send the guide out to them. If it's just them making a decision, fine. You're good to go through the guide by yourself. If somebody else is making that decision with you on what house you're purchasing, they need to go through the guide with you. And when you go through the guide, just jot down any questions, jot down any statements or anything that, you know, sticks out to you. And then while we're going over the guide, they usually have a little bit more preparation on what they want to ask and things they want to point out, so we can have a little bit more meaty conversation.
Yeah, that is brilliant. I learned very early on in my career, like the question of, are you the only decision maker or is there another one? And I've had guys be like, oh, well, my wife will be involved. I'm like, cool, showing houses to both of you, right? Like, I know she's the real decision maker. And I've literally been in a showing, like talking to one person and then clearly been able to see like oh, you are not the decision maker, get out of here. And like, go start dealing with the other person. Yeah, John.
So I think one of the fears we have around asking a question is that we're going to get the answer we don't want to hear. So let's say you do ask them the question, are you prepared to write an offer, waiving inspections, waiving appraisal, and they say, no, I'm not. Then what?
Again, ask more questions.
Yeah, I'll make you tell me no. So then what?
Okay. So for me, yeah, sorry, someone.
Yeah, this is Juanita online. The short answer to Maria's question, I think, is the reason you're going through all of this first is because you can't even write an offer unless you've done these things first. You won't know what to write it for, what to write it on, or any of those things. So I think that's probably the short answer to her question on why you're going through all of this on buyer consultations is because you can't write an offer if you don't do these things.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And like, or writing the offer is a waste of time. But so John brings up a good point. And this is where you as the realtor, you do have to do a little bit more work in my opinion. So call the listing agent, step one, and like ask good questions to the listing agent. Because I mean, I had a scenario where I totally thought this one house was gonna go crazy. It was listed for like $395. I thought it was gonna sell for like $430 or something like that. And I call and they're like, no, we've got one other offer in hand. And she was open enough. She was like, and it's not that great. And I was like, well, thank you. Like, who are you? And so like, we wrote the offer, right? And so when I'm having that conversation with that client, I'm using that example or some of those examples to say, look, I understand you're not comfortable in it. Let's still get into the market because those scenarios do come up. But are you willing for me, like, are you okay? Would you be offended if I push back a little and tell you no? If you want to see a house or write an offer on a house and I go do all this research and I tell them what I do and I determine that like based on the scenario, if you're not willing to do that, you're probably not going to get the house. So I get permission to tell my clients no as well. But you as the realtor, you gotta do some work. Like you got to go research and find those answers so that way you can give your clients good examples. Did that kind of answer things, John?
Thank you.
Cool. I think there was one other question. Yeah.
So I'm finding that with first-time buyers, I go over that. This is where the market is. This is what is the expectation, appraisals, waiving inspection. And when we're in the consultation, they're like, okay. But when we start looking and it's time to write the offer, all of that goes out the window.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know if I want to waive inspection. That doesn't mean, and my business, they have to put in writing that they want to waive an inspection. And so I don't really push that. So, which is kind of, it makes it probably harder for my buyers too. Because my concern is, I tell you to waive this inspection, you get your house and the roof is leaking, it's structural damage. And then my name is, well, my realtor told me to. So because I don't really push that, I think my clients are like, well, let's just put the offer in and see what happens. But how far do you go before you actually start saying, well, you might have to take that chance on waiving an inspection? Like, how many houses do you have to show up? How do you say it without them feeling like you just don't want to show the houses anymore? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah. So for me, this goes back to like getting an idea of the entire picture of them, right? Like, who are they? First time home buyer. Great. I spend a lot more time talking about inspections, and my solution for them is I'm going, are you okay spending a little cash if you don't get under contract on a home? Because how many people out there know a home inspector that will actually, they won't do like a home inspection, but they'll do like a walk and talk consultation for you at your showing, right? Because I have the conversation too. I go, well, what concerns you about a home inspection? Well, I just don't want to get in there be a major issue. Cool. What are major issues? Roof, water intrusion, foundation, crawl space, mechanical items, right? What if we got a home inspector there early at your showing? cost you about $150 or $200 or whatever it is. But they'll check those things out and tell you, hey, you got the all clear. Are you willing to waive inspections on that? So for me, it's that conversation early on. What is it about waiving an inspection that concerns you? And then I can take that and adjust it. I don't remember where we were. Any other expectations you set in your buyer consultations? Anyone else do something different or unique? Austin Highfield, this will be brilliant.
This is just something I thought of. Ooh, do not need a microphone. This is something I thought of with the home inspection piece is that's a snapshot in time. So we're having a little bit deeper of a conversation on what the home inspection is and leading that into how can we provide more value, such as offering a home warranty to them. So that's going to protect them for longer periods of time. That home inspection is great for that snapshot of time, but God forbid, 6 months after you've owned the house, something might come up. So it's asking the right questions, which I love, but also alleviating some of that fear of future buyer remorse or future issues to come up. So,
By the way, 76% of the time somebody purchases a home nationally, something does go wrong with the house. Within their first year.
Within the first year.
Yeah. So it's not if, it's when. Like a dishwasher or something.
I don't know how many homes I've actually been involved with, or even my own personal home, you get the home inspection report, you're like, oh, there's all this stuff on it, and you move in, you do none of it. You literally don't touch it. But, for first-time home buyers, inspection's scary, right? They just don't necessarily know what they don't know. So it's hey, let's talk about what really concerns you with the home inspection. Again, what was the Facebook headline you read or the TikTok video you saw about home inspections that scares you? Well, I saw this bring out $40,000 issue. Okay, here's how we can prevent that from happening to you, right? And come up with a solution for them. Partner with them on that. Yeah, Allie.
I would also say, I know that first-time home buyers especially don't want to waive inspection, but it's built with human hands. There's going to be stuff wrong with the house. So what are the deal breakers? What would absolutely prevent you from buying this house? It's 9 times out of 10 foundation. You can find out how old a roof is. You can find out how old an HVAC, water heater, all of those things are before you even step foot in the house. So check those things off the box before you even go in. Look in the crawl space. I always tell clients, I am not a home inspector, but I have seen enough inspection reports to know if there's standing water and all of the insulation's falling out of under the house, there's probably a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
So I would just tell them up front, what are the actual deal breakers and how do we get as much information as possible before we even kind of put this on the table as an option.
Can I get a video view in a crawl space, please?
I look at every single crawl space, and Arlie was in one this morning.
Oh
so.
my gosh. Go Arlie.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think sometimes with first-time home buyers, they do expect clean inspection reports. But there's no such thing. Even on brand new construction, there's no such thing, right? We know that. So I think you just have to have a real honest conversation with your client. And again, to tie all this back, why this is a winning multiple offer situation, we're having this conversation, is because you have to get your client okay with that conversation and having that expectation set in order to win the multiple offer. Because when it comes time to offer, you don't want to be having this conversation about inspections when you have to have an offer in 45 minutes, right? How many times have you gone to write an offer on a home? They're oh, we're moving up our offer deadline. Right. It happens all the time. So that's why we're talking about setting expectations early now. Any other questions or thoughts on setting expectations with your clients?
When it comes to waiving the entire inspection versus inspection for informational purposes,
how much of an impact or how much of a difference do you think that is when it comes to winning the contract?
Yeah, so for those on Zoom who didn't hear the first part of the question, said when it comes to waiving the entire inspection or comes to waiving partial inspections, how much of a difference does that make toward winning? I think it depends on the seller, honestly. And that's why I was going to talk about this example a little bit later, but so we listed a house recently. We had 32 offers on it. Out of those 32 offers, Anyone want to take a guess how many phone calls we got from buyer's agents?
I'm trying to.
Six is close. I think it was 7. Yeah, John gave him the answer, cheater. So it was 7. So if you're calling the listing agent before you make an offer, you are already better than 75% of the other realtors that are out there. Just by doing that. Like, I don't know how you can actually write a successful offer without calling the listing agent.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't even understand. Like, people who just forward me an Authentisign as well, like, who are you? Like, what is this for? Like, was this an accident? Like, I mean, I've almost looked over an offer because I just got this thing and I was like, wait, is it? Oh, this is an offer.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, and it's terrible. Yeah.
Seth? And you can't assume that they either want a quick close or that they need a 45-day close to find their next house. That's why, one, you need to find that out. And I had, when I was representing my son, he could close as quickly as 3 weeks. And the seller said that they needed time to find their next house. And when I told the agent, we can move as quick as you need, should yours need to move quicker, they're like, really? They're that flexible? I was like, yeah. And we got it. And we were not the highest.
Yeah, and did you call the listing agent and get that information?
Well, of course I did.
Yeah.
And had that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone online?
Hey Seth, it's Karen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. I was fortunate enough to be with Nick at your open house last week on Saturday. I may be jumping ahead or this isn't relevant. When he was telling me that with that clause or the stipulation that says all offers accepted until Monday night at 5, say, he told me that actually can change. They can get an offer that day. And I'm here telling my buyer, well, we have until Monday at 5. So they take a day to think about it. Come to find out they accepted an offer the day of the open house. How do you explain something like that? Because that makes me look so bad. I'm a nervous wreck about that.
Yep. So I'm glad I flipped the slide to your client's ready to make an offer, because the very first thing you'll see on there is call the listing agent. Like, the moment your client says, we like this, and even if like they haven't told me they're ready to make an offer, but they're seriously thinking about it, I'm calling the listing agent. Well, in my system, I have Nick do that. Like, he's been trained to recognize that and do it. But like, we're calling the listing agent and we're saying, hey, are you waiting to review offers, or could you potentially get something early? And if they say, well, if we get a great early offer, the seller might take it. Nick knows that at that point, he's texting that agent twice a day, checking in, going, where are we at now? Where are we at now? Where are we at now? And like, I think some people told me, it's like, well, why do you want to make it seem like your client wants that house so bad? Like, aren't you going to give something away? And I'm like, we're already having to give everything away to get the house. Like, it doesn't matter, right? So like, your job as the agent in that point is to like build that relationship with the listing agent. So call the listing agent. That's the first thing I would say, is call the listing agent. And I hate when people do that to me. Like, I have a showing set up and it gets canceled before you even see it because they accept an offer. Like, it's happened to us. And honestly, I've been the guy who wrote the offer that did that to you, so I apologize. But like, we've all done that. Let's not lie. But for me, it's call the listing agent and really stay on top of that. Like, you, the agent, have to do that. So that's part of winning the multiple offer situation too, is like, you got to do some work.
That makes complete sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
So my routine is to call when my client says, I want to put off on this house. I do call the listing agent. It's been my experience, though, they tell you nothing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and usually when I call, I say, hey, what is your seller expecting? What can we do to win this offer? Bring your highest and best.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, okay. So then, I try to ask more questions like, do you want a 30-day closing and 45? And then sometimes they may open up a little bit, but for the most part, it's like, well, bring your highest and best. There are some who might say, and I find the ones who say, well, we just have one offer because they want more, so they're more willing to discuss it. But how do you break that wall of bring your highest and best?
Yeah, so for me, this goes into empathy and building trust. right? So my first thing, and like, if you're a listing agent, you've gotten this call from me, now you're gonna know why I do it. But the first thing I do is I call and I go, hey, it's, this is Seth KW, just give me a call about, 123 Main Street. How's it going? Oh, doing good. Dude, that's a great listing. I bet you've gotten a ton of calls. And they're like, oh my God, yeah, the phone won't stop ringing. What does that tell you? Now you're starting to learn like, oh, they've gotten a lot of action on this house. What does that tell you? Probably a lot of offers, right? Like they might not tell you, but you can ask the right thing where you can start inferring other things from it, right? Yeah, man, I was looking at the showing schedule. It looked kind of packed. Yeah, tons of people through the house. Okay, cool. I haven't actually asked them like a question about what an offer needs to look like, right? But now I'm already starting to learn things of going, cool, yeah, I bet you've had a lot of people tell you they're going to write offers too, huh? Yeah. How many do you have in hand? By that point, because I built that trust with them, like I started creating that relationship, usually they'll say, yeah, we've got a few in hand. I go, oh, only a few? It's like, I expected that place to get way more. And then I can ask questions like, well, hey, whether I know the neighborhood or not, it's like, hey, I don't know that neighborhood very well. Like, as the listing agent, the expert, like, can you tell me why people like it so much? Oh, this and this happens. This happens. I was talking to this person, like, this person did this and this person did this. Like, you're just asking questions that aren't about an offer that you can start inferring other information about. So that's how I do it.
Can I answer that question?
Yeah.
It's similar to what you're saying.
But honestly, sometimes when you're the listing agent and you get these calls, you can tell that person doesn't know what they're talking about. So you have to, this is now a speech class, but you have to like be clear, concise, have a tone of voice that is, I am calling you to accomplish X, right? Like if this is a hot listing and they've gotten 30 calls on a Sunday, they don't want to talk to you if you're just like, hi, so I was kind of, I'm like, oh my God, can I hang up the phone right now? Like, think of who you're talking to. Most listing agents are Ds. They're DIs. They are driven. They like, quick, tell me what you need. So he's cutting in at even a subconscious level because what he's doing is he's getting most of the high D's guards down.
Breaking their pattern.
Yes. And then he's like, okay, I'll talk to you. Like, you kind of sound like, because he's saying all the things that make it sound like he knows what he's talking about. He's looking at the showing schedule. He knows what that listing is bringing in. He's maybe sold in that neighborhood. Whatever information he wants to diverge or you want to diverge to the other person, he's introducing that thought. So he's putting himself in, hey, I'm on your level. You're not anywhere better than I am or vice versa. But so much of that is done in how you speak to someone. We could call the same person and have a totally different outcome because of what words and the tone of voice that you're deciding to use. So be very aware of that, I guess.
Yeah, I think that goes back to like, know what you're talking about so that way you can speak to it.
Can you just come up here?
I also add some kind of humor. I'll be like, what do you guys need? What do you want for this house? Tell me, so I can give my client real expectations. And then I'll follow it up with like, we only have one kidney left or one kid left, but they really want this house. What can we do to make that happen?
Or I'm easy to work with. Like I used to
Oh,
love
yeah.
going in there. Listen, we're gonna get this thing done. My clients are ready to get this thing closed. Like they love the house. We're gonna get this done fast. I got the right people on the team. Like that produces a lot of like, when I gotta filter through a bunch of them, I'm gonna go to the ones that.
Oh yeah, one of my favorites that I use kind of with that is like easy to work with is like, man, thank you so much for like taking my call and actually talking to me. Like in this market, I don't know why these other realtors out there. So like, it's me versus you. Like you got a seller that wants to sell and I got a buyer that wants to buy. Like, let's do this thing. Like, what do we need? Right?
I had this once and I had the buyer agent to call and ask questions. We were planning an open house that weekend. So she said, oh, you might as well just go ahead and cancel your open house because I'm going to send you a down my offer.
Nice.
And she did. I would cancel.
There you go.
Yeah.
But how far does that actually go when, you have a client? If that all sounds great, but if you got a client paying cash, I mean, you got somebody paying cash, then it's because that's what I'm running into. Like, when I call and ask questions, it's just like, how much if you're a listing agent, how much does that play a part when you're looking at my offer? It was like, oh, I had a great conversation with her after she broke down my walls, but here's this cash offer. So, you know, so. 'cause that's
There's
kinda
no
like the
real
world.
answer. Yeah.
Right.
But I think it's that habit.
I can't control that, right? I can only control what I can control. And the things I can control is doing my best in like building that relationship with the listing agent. And sometimes like, I mean, I have an example that I'm going to show you, one of these where like I actually won a deal. It was $15,000 less, and it was strictly because like the guy said, well, one of this other offers, like they're using an internet lender. I won't talk bad about them or whatever, and who it was. And I was like, oh, so like you love good local lenders. I was like, that's who my buyer's using. They actually weren't. And so like I literally hung up. I called my buyer and I said, hey, you're talking to my preferred lender right now because that's probably going to get you this house. And luckily I have a good enough relationship with my preferred lender that he got me a pre-approval in like 15 minutes or something. I mean, like he got it done. So next thing we know, we send it in and he came back and said, hey, I told my seller to go with you guys because like I know you, I trust you, and I trust that lender.
And don't mess us up.
Yeah.
I just wanted to draw attention to the more often you're having these conversations, especially as you're calling these listing agents and setting these expectations with your clients, the easier it gets and the shorter those conversations often are, because I'm willing to bet Seth is calling a lot of the same people and they're going to start to recognize his name coming up. And then as he gains traction and he's closing these deals, they're going to recognize from the listing side, hey, this thing gets to closing, and ask any major top listing agent. That's the most important thing to them, is getting the deal closed. Oftentimes that has to do with getting their clients the best deal, but not always. So keep that in mind. The more you do this, the easier it gets.
Yeah, so I'll back that up and I'll say, I definitely also check out the listing agent and see who they are. Because if I'm calling somebody like John, I know John is good. He's going to understand what I'm talking about. I'm talking to him a very different way than I am somebody who like, you know, has a newer MLS number. I'm asking questions about that person like, hey, so I saw your MLS number. Like, how long you been doing real estate? And if they're like, oh, in Richmond, like I'm new here, but I've been doing real estate for 12 years, something else, right? Like, then that conversation is different than if they're like, oh, I just got my license. This is my first listing. And I'm like, got it. So I need to teach you what my offer looks like. Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with being a new agent. Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with that. Hold on. There's nothing wrong with, let me bring it back. There's nothing wrong with being new. I bring that up, and the follow-up point to that is, I know I need to teach that listing agent how to present my offer. That's my point to that, because they might not have seen as many contracts and know the things that I wrote into it and know what's important about why my offer is so great. You want to go with my offer because this client, they're not just pre-approved. I have the lender fully underwrite them, so they are equivalent to cash. A newer agent might not know that difference, right? So you've got to teach them how to do it. So check the listing agent out as well and know who they are and know who you're talking to. Because I've literally had to walk an agent through how to present my offer to the seller. I felt very conflicted about it because I was like, am I allowed to do this? Like, this seems like I got a leg up, but we won. I'm gonna say it better. You know, so yeah, John.
Yeah, just from a listing agent's perspective, is the most frustrating thing is I get a call on a Saturday or a Sunday, and the agent has not read the agent comments.
Yeah.
And like, please, love everything that's holy. Slow down. Pull up Home Snap, pull up your laptop, and read the agent comments.
Right.
Like for us, our team, we do a FAQ and we attach it. And it has everything you want to know.
Oh, wow.
Read the FAQ. So the realtors that call me and say they have the same questions, I let it sit for 24 hours. And hopefully they'll slow down and go, oh, maybe I should go find the information. So yes, Alan. Okay, yeah. Oh, you want the next? You want this? I'm talking. I'm sorry.
No, so
No, but I want to partner with somebody who's really good at what they do, because if you do it well, then I look really great to my seller. So read the questions.
and you're secure it's going to get to closing.
Read the agent comments, then call me and say, hey, I need clarification on these two things. Can you help me understand what the best way to go here is? Or I'm not understanding your comment here. Then come from a curiosity question point, and I'll walk you through the whole thing. A good listing agent will walk you through the whole thing, and we'll partner. But don't come in with, just blazing questions and you haven't done your basic work to show up in the first place.
And if you're a PC agent, you call me on a Saturday or Sunday and say, what should I ask for? And I pull up the MLS and it's in there, I'm gonna tell you to go read it.
Yeah.
And just to piggyback off of what John was saying, if there are very detailed instructions that almost would let you think, I don't need to call the listing agent because they are so detailed, you call them and thank them for putting all of that information in there and then introduce yourself or seek clarification on those things. But I think in the beginning, when things were so crazy with the market, it's like, oh, I don't want to bother them because really they have answered all of my questions, but they took time to do that. So I always call and thank them for that information and seek clarification or just let them know that I have an offer coming.
Or is there anything else that I do need to know that you didn't put on there, right? And also too, if they're reviewing offers on Mondays or Tuesdays, thank them for that.
Right.
You know, like, let's change that. Stop reviewing offers on Sundays. Stop. Yeah. Move it to
So,
hold on, we have an online question. Kim, online?
Oh, I didn't have a question. I was just gonna say that as a listing agent, it's really hard when buyer's agents call you multiple times a day repeatedly to find out how their client's offer is competing. So I would maybe make sure, like, I'm a super high D. So if people call me a lot over and over and I can't give them any more information than I've already given them, it starts to get annoying. Because I can't tell them anything. My clients haven't given me any permission to say anything about what's inside of any offer that I'm holding, other than the number of offers that I have in hand. So I think, you know, make sure that there's some agents that might engage with you and might share more, might talk more, and great, know that about them, but just know who you're talking with. There's some agents that are super friendly and chatty, that are some are more high Ds like me, that are just more efficient, and we want to answer your questions and be available to answer those questions. But I can't like take multiple calls that are all about the same thing over and over. Does that make sense? So that starts to tell me too, that maybe that, or the other side of it too, is that if someone's calling, like John said, with questions that are already in the MLS, it does make me wonder if that buyer's agent is really on the ball, you know, so like how that buyer's agent presents to me, if they call and they're not organized, like I noticed that. And I don't know about other listing agents in the office, but I do pass along to my clients any information pertinent to the deal, which would be the buyer's agent. Like, how are they responding to me? However you send me the offer is how it gets forwarded to my client. So they say exactly how you're talking to me. They see how you present the offer in emails to me. That is part of the equation.
Yep, and we're gonna go into that a little bit as well. So one more, and then time-wise, we gotta move on.
Right. So sometimes you'll get a very closed off answer, like they'll just say, you know what to do. You know how to write the best offer. And no, we don't need to write that. So that's not giving out any information at all. So how do you do it, like an objection? So do you just say, oh, okay?
Yeah, anyone else got a good answer? I got mine, but again, I don't necessarily want to be the one that's talking the whole time. Anyone else got one? Got it. Okay. For me on that one is I'm like, typically that person is a certain personality that's like, oh, you know what to do. Just give me an offer. Right. So I'm going back and go, I'd love to get you an offer and I'd love to give you exactly what your seller wants. What do they need? Okay, great. What else? Okay, great. Houses in this market are selling roughly 15 to 20% over the list prices. Are we even going to be competitive?
Just send in your offer.
Okay, got it. Well, I'd love not to waste your time either. So can I get any idea there?
No, just present. I present it to the seller.
Okay, got it. I went 3 deep and then you're going to stop, right? Like if somebody's really going to do that to you, you can only control what you can control. What I can control is the questions I ask and how hard I push that, right? So it's like, and then at that point, when I'm sending in the offer, I may be going like, hey, here's my client's offer. I think it's really great. We gave you this, which you told me you needed. I'd love to give you the other stuff that you didn't tell me you need. So between you and me, they might have some other flexibility. If we're close, come back to me. I might be able to do more, right? So I'm putting it on them that like, I'd love to give you a better offer, but you shut me out. Like, you got to come back to me, right? All right, let's move on. Then we'll have a little question and answer at the end. So your client's ready to make an offer. We talked a lot about calling the listing agent. Have that conversation. Like, you really got to dig in and you got to know what needs to happen in an offer to get there. So don't necessarily be as direct about the offers. You don't have to. Some people you need to be, other people you don't. So again, who is the listing agent? Do you know their personality? Do you know what they want? You know, so forth. Do all your normal due diligence at that point. Like, and again, you should do some due diligence before calling the listing agent of like, check the MLS, check the agent only comments, if there's a frequently asked questions thing added in there, all of that stuff. Then you're going to do your normal stuff. You know, when do they need closing? What's rent back look like? All the mechanicals, you're having conversations, you're checking the floodplain. If you're not doing that, and have it, this little tab on the MLS, check it for every house. There's been houses I've looked at where I said, this is not in a floodplain. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, wow, no, there is a floodplain there. So check that. Discuss the seller's needs with your clients. So this ties back into the whole first section of this class, right? You've already had all the conversations about what the market looks like, what offers are typically looking like, how we're waiving inspections, waiving appraisals, and all that kind of stuff. So when you go back to your client, you can say, hey, remember during our buyer consultation when we talked about X, Y, and Z, we're in one of those situations. And now that conversation is far easier. And sometimes if you do it right, like a lot of my clients will just go, what do we need to do to win? And at that point, I get to tell them, well, I think in order to do it, this is what you need. Or, hey, I called and talked to the listing agent and they told me there's only one other offer and they even said it's not that great. Now I've built more trust with my client that they're going to listen to me when I tell them what they need to do, right? But if you don't have that information because you were one of the 75% of agents that didn't call the listing agent, you're not going to be successful, right? So once you discuss with your client what they need, I always call the listing agent again sometimes if I know the situation requires it. Hey, I put the offer together. When I first talked to you, you know, you weren't sure if it was going to be like how much your client cared about inspections, and you were going to check on that for me. Are they cool with my client getting an inspection, or do they truly want like just don't even come in my house after you give me an offer? You know, what does it look like? I'm getting clarity from the listing agent and they're telling me exactly what needs to happen based on the seller. You know, if you learn in your conversation that the seller is a huge gardener and landscaper and all that stuff, I'll sometimes write in an offer like, you know, this contract is contingent upon the seller giving the purchaser a manual on how to maintain the landscaping and so forth. Like, I want them to see how much my client also cares about those things they care about, right? So, but you've got to get all that information. So call them again. Send over your offer with all necessary documentation and proof of funds. In this market, if you were doing an appraisal waiver and are not sending a screenshot of the cash that can cover that appraisal waiver, you need to start. Like, I don't know how many times I've actually won a deal just because we did an appraisal waiver. And as a part of that, I sent over the proof of funds that shows, hey, if it does come in short, here's the proof that we can cover that appraisal waiver. Because in some listing agents don't know that they actually need that. So you showing that tells that listing agent like, oh, wow, this agent is good, right? Like,
And send it in the same email.
yes. Don't just forward we're going to talk about that. Don't just forward your authenticide and then send a pre-approval and all this weird stuff and everything. Like,
Don't make them do the work.
yes. So as a part of sending all the documentation in your email, and that was a slide I actually forgot with some examples of what it should look like. Don't just send the offer and say attached.
Yeah.
Make it easy for the listing agent. Listing agents have it hard these days when it comes to review offers. So your job is to make it easy for them. So everyone I send is like a hey, and it has a brief description of like the offer, what my clients loved about it, the fact that like they're pregnant and they're excited about this home and raising their family there and so forth. And I say, and to make your job easier, here's a bullet point list of the offer highlights. And then I bullet point price escalation, no inspection, no appraisal, etc. And I just put it in there. I've had listing agents come back and actually tell me like, man, I didn't even actually look at your offer. I just presented the email to the client. And I'm like, probably shouldn't do that. But like, you know, what if I had a typo or something in there? But make it easy for the listing agent. That's how you build more trust with the listing agent, because your client listens to who? They listen to you. So their client is probably listening to that listing agent. And I don't know how many times I've had listing agents actually just tell the seller like, hey, go with them. Like, I think this is going to be a good deal. This is going to be smooth. They're going to get to closing, that kind of thing. So write out a good email. Provide all documentation in one email. Do not just forward your AuthentiSign. Especially do not CC the listing agent on your AuthentiSign to where it like pops up and they're just like, what is going on? See, all the people who handle, like Jessica handles all of our like offer intake. You like, I literally just go to her and I go, what do you hate? She's like, this. You know, and she starts rattling things off. So please take the extra effort and really present your offer in a clean, clear, concise way with everything that's necessary one time. If a listing agent has to start chasing you down for things, man, that will really frustrate them. So, and then I like to also get my client's lender to call the listing agent. So if I ever hear from the listing agent, like worried about financing or whatever it is, or something like that, some listing agents don't understand how secure VA loans actually are. And so I'll have the listing agent, or sorry, the lender call the listing agent and explain it to them. Chris Parks will actually like record a video and text it and be like, here's everything I did. They're super secure. They're good to go. Let me know if you got questions. And he'll put you on a group text with them. Some of the other lenders that I have, they'll actually call because they have relationships with these agents as well, and they'll put it together. All right. I've got some examples about offers. So at all of these, I've got 3 examples. All of these, the winning offer was actually not as high as the other offer that it beat out. So it just shows you that it's not necessarily all about that. Sometimes it's terms. On this one, actually beat out a cash offer as well that was fairly close to the top. But as you'll see, we waived appraisal, we waived inspection, and part of this too, waiving the appraisal, you have to run a market analysis on the house. So because your clients sometimes, like this house is listed at 225 or 235, and they're gonna go, well, what if it appraises for 200? I go, okay, well, let's talk about reality, right? Like I've run a market analysis. Here's the comps. What makes you feel that based on this, it's going to appraise at $200,000? And they go, oh, I guess it won't. Where do you think it will appraise? 260. Great. Well, you're already willing to do a $25,000 appraisal waiver. So instead, why don't we just do a full appraisal waiver to make it clean? Right? Like you don't, because for some reason, sellers' minds right now, and I've asked a lot of listing agents about this, if there is a full appraisal waiver and then somebody that is a $50,000 or $60,000 appraisal waiver, they're going to go with the full because it's clean. Yeah. Like they just are. So you have to have those conversations, and it does take a little confidence to be able to run those comps, determine where it's going to appraise, and then be confident enough to tell your client, you need to waive it. And this is what that's going to look like for you probably. So you got to build some confidence there. I will say that. We did a big deposit. I love big deposits. I'm finding that like when I actually explain that to the listing agent, it matters. But you do have to teach the seller why that's important, or teach the listing agent why it's important. And sometimes I've even made part of the deposit non-refundable. So I've gone, hey, we're doing $10,000 and $1,500 of it is non-refundable. So even if we don't close, you got a month of mortgage paid for. So if you go back on the market, it's no skin off your seller's back, right? We did a faster close because that's what they wanted. I called my lender and I said, how fast can you close? And on this one, he said, I can do 12 business days. So that's what we actually put in the offer, 12 business days. I didn't know exactly what that meant, but he said he could do it, so we did it, right? Like, and it sounds cool when you call a listing agent, hey, I know you got these other people there for 30 days, I'm at 12 business days. They're like, okay, that sounds fast. So on this one, 285, we escalated 330. We actually beat an offer that was $5,000 more, and they fully waived inspection, and we didn't. We did a big inspection waiver, but again, I had a conversation with the listing agent, and she said, my seller doesn't care about inspections. Like, if you want to do an inspection, great. And I asked my clients, I said, what scares you? They go, anything over 10,000 bucks. I said, cool. So you're cool putting a $10,000 inspection waiver? I said, yeah. So we did it. Did a bigger deposit, 12 business days. And then we did free rent back versus only 30 days free. And we had, so faster closing was very important to them. And the rent back was very important to them. And we gave them both of those things. And we had lower price and we did inspections. And appraisal, the way we did this is I said, if the final purchase price ends up being $320,000 or less, we'll fully waive the appraisal. And if it's $320,000 and $1 or more, we'll do a $5,000 appraisal waiver. So it was all dependent upon where the escalation clause was going to push things to in the appraisal waiver.
Say that one more time.
So because we did an escalation clause, I didn't know where the final price was going to be.
Right.
I said, if our final price based on where the other offers are makes our purchase price $320,000 or less, we will do a full appraisal waiver. We will waive the appraisal contingency.
You're paying $320 no matter what, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
But if it's over $320 by $1 or higher up to our max, whatever that was, well, I think we were, yeah, we went to $330. That was our max on this one. Then we will do a $5,000 waiver. So if we were at $330 and the appraisal was $322, we would go down to $327, right? So we're guaranteeing them money. I had to really teach the listing agent that.
Yeah, we're gonna say.
That one took a lot.
This one probably took some.
Here's another one. As you'll see, we were $15,000 below the other offer, but this was the good lending partner that won. This was the one where the guy said, I hate X, who is your lender? I said, oh, our lender's a really good local lender. He's awesome. And we did that. But you'll see, we did really big deposit. 5K of it was non-refundable. So we basically were able to tell the seller, like, hey, if this were to fall through for any reason, you've got some mortgage covered for a while. So like, you've got nothing to worry about. They were only willing to waive $20,000 in appraisal. We fully did it. And again, this was one of the situations where I actually told my client, hey, if you go up to this number, you're probably going to pay about $15,000 to $20,000 out of pocket. And they said, that's fine. And so we did a full waiver on it. And the appraisal ended up coming in $15,000 short. And they were totally fine with it. But I had a really great lender who, you know, helped take care of everything on that. And then again, we had an inspection on here, but they waived it because I had the conversation that said, what is more important to you and the seller? And then we just made the offer look exactly like what they wanted. So I'm not guessing is the biggest part of this. Like there's no guessing for me. It's I'm talking to the seller and I'm figuring out what it needs to look like and I'm giving them that. So again, I'm not doing anything that's like special or unique or anything. It's just, this is my system of how we do things. All right, so we've got time. We're gonna break out into small groups and we're gonna mastermind. So here's what the scenario is. You're making an offer on a house with a very experienced listing agent. The seller is selling the first house they ever bought 3 years ago. They're super upset that they're selling it, but they have to relocate for a job. That's the scenario. You have a buyer and you're writing an offer on this. Every group has the same offer in these three areas. Purchase price of $485 and you're escalating to $570. You're waiving an inspection, you're waiving an appraisal. What I want the groups to do then is break out and come up with 2 or 3 additional ideas of what you can put into an offer that is above this to kind of get the seller's attention, right? To put your buyer in a better position to win. Does that make sense? Any questions on that?
And then you're gonna come back.
And then, yeah, so we're gonna break out for 10 minutes. You got 10 minutes to do this. And I also want you to come up with some questions that you could ask the listing agents to get as much information as you can. Okay. So what we're gonna do, you've got online set up. So everyone online is gonna get into a group. Let's kind of break this up into like U5. And then let's do U6. You guys good with that? Kind of here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this here so that people that are gonna watch this later can kind of hear what you guys are talking about. So if you guys can kind of like, I don't know.
You guys will be a group here. And then you guys will be a group. over here.
So-
And then everyone outside the training room.
Hey, Antoine, can you come up this way? Because we're gonna have this camera in with you guys, so if you can come up like maybe in this one right here, so that we can kind of get.
Are you available to come help with this collective group here?
Yeah. So when they,
Yeah, I think. Hey, Rob, you can- Yeah, sorry. Here, so people- And I'll be floating around the room.
I want to get like, that way people can hear what you guys are talking about in this break.
And there's two different versions. So you use per item, so you can use per item, or you can do total. So if the inspector grosses and, he'll normally do an estimation about it, if they go over a certain amount, like he hits that 10,000 mark, then you actually figure it out.
Sometimes it would just work like any single line item under $500.
The stronger one is going to be per item.
Per item. And then for this situation, I think I would leave it with red back. That's the only thing that's left. And then closing as soon as possible. Do it as soon as possible closing, which usually this market, local lenders just always check with the vendor, do a 2 week closing, and then give a freeze on that. Put up a tenant possession with the vendor and say a tenant can live in the house after closing, after 60 days. And in this market, so competitive, I would give that. I think as much as possible. In this market, initially it was 1%, but now I'm starting to and then we're just going to set the expectation with the buyer. This is your money, just going to a third party engineer. So that just you have that money eventually you're going to give that out. Why not bring it upfront from the rate? We're not submitting earnest money unless not we get ready. So which means I would always try within 3 days of getting ready. What would you guys do?
Oh, I've had it where I have to, and I would like
and attach a picture of the check with the offer. It depends on how desperate the buyer is, how much he likes the house. I would always ask, do you want to just give it a shot and see if you get lucky, or do you wait for that? So I'm getting very close offer for my buyer. I don't like the first time to share. They might not be okay going to a very high station. They might not feel comfortable. Everything is okay, I'll go by you. Whenever you're ready to make the full on offer, you let me know this is the house I want it to match. So that's when I pull out all my. Then just to make them feel comfortable, I'm not sure if I do the right thing, but I don't go super aggressive about house one or two. Eventually, they learn their lesson, looking at the market, oh, we missed that house. We could have done better. Then we set an expectation. Okay, this is what it is. We want to look around, and this is the right. So that's funny. I exactly know what Alice
I will.
then the very first one
It all depends. When we need a house,
Are we back in? Because I can't hear anything.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, thanks.
Stay online. Everyone on Zoom should be able to hear us now. All right. Let's start. Let's have Sue. You want to talk or Sarah talk? Sarah, come on. So
He's actually louder than me.
all right. So what I want to know is what your 2 or 3 items that you would potentially add to this contract to make it more appealing to the seller, and then also any questions that you would ask the listing agent to get a little bit more information about it.
Well, first of all, your purchase price and escalation clause doesn't state how many increments you're willing to go. So
Everyone is going to 5.7. Everyone in this room, you're escalating to 5.7. It's the same.
So we were going to be very aggressive and do like increments of 5 to 10,000, because a lot of people do like, well, I do like 1 or 2, sometimes 3 of them being aggressive. But if you really want to win right now, I mean, do $5, $10, $15,000 increments, and that's going to really bump that back and forth escalation. Find out how long or how quick they need to move in or move out, if they need a rent back, how quick you can close. What else am I missing?
So to repeat, one of the things we talked about was the timeline, and we expanded upon that. But the 2 major areas, a seller may need more time to move out, or we've actually started to run into a few of these when it's a vacant house and sellers are selling for maybe relocation or unfortunately financial need. And we actually had one where a buyer is moving in prior to closing, starting to take over utilities and pay the seller rent in order to be higher than the next offer. So it wasn't much. I mean, we're talking maybe $2,000 difference, but we came in ahead of the other offer. It also accepted a little bit of liability and put some skin in the game, because nobody wants to move into a house and then not buy it and move out. So yeah, it did make that offer a little bit different. So buyer possession and seller possession in the extended agreements for that. That's my shameless broker pro. Next.
All right, I like it. So kind of the biggest takeaways I saw from that one is bigger escalation increments. I've actually had a listing agent even tell me that one time that was going to matter to them, because for some reason they saw an offer that would do that as a better offer. I don't know exactly how that works in my own mind, but it does stick in a seller's mind, like, whoa, this person's willing to pay how much more? And it guarantees that seller more money. So doing a $5,000 over the highest other offer, whatever. And then also early possession. So that goes back to the fact that I'm sure you called the listing agent and you had a conversation with them and you said, yeah, and you said, hey, what is the seller's situation? What's happening? Oh, they're having to move for relocation. Oh, would they love to get some of their like costs off of them while they're, going through this process? Would they be open to early possession? Like, that's finding a solution that matches the seller's needs, so that way your buyer wins, right? But if you never called the listing agent, just send an offer over, what would happen?
And we don't see a lot of vacant houses right now. So when it is a vacant house, like, there's an opportunity there. It's vacant for a reason. That's usually a pain point for the seller.
Yeah. All right, let's go to this group.
Wait, we need clarification.
Yes.
Is this a competition?
No, this is, well, yeah, sure. This is a competition.
Because if it's not, then we're gonna approach it from a different perspective. But if we want to win,
Prize
then...
gets lunch with Murray. Lunch with, you get a date with Rob.
Where are we going?
Yeah, all right. Let's go to this group here.
All right. Okay, so
All right, so we are going with a non-refundable EMD of 10,000. And then the HOA repairs to offer for the buyer to pay for the HOA repairs. Yes?
Buyer pay for HOA repairs.
He did, I saw it. And then the termite, we're going to put $0 obligation to the seller should anything come up in termite inspection, but we're gonna leave, he's like totally cheating. We're gonna leave the $75 fee on the seller.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're not big spenders.
Right.
Yeah. Concerned about our inspection.
Yeah. 2 and 3, right?
Okay. 2 or 3, and then any questions you would ask the listing agent.
Oh, do they need rent back? Do they need quick closing?
And would us offering a non-refundable earnest deposit put us higher than anyone else they have? Because we're gonna assume that with an escalation of 570, we're number 1, 2, or 3. So, and that's who we're really going up against. And I think that's a mistake a lot of agents think. They think we're going against everybody. We're just going against the number 1 offer. So I want mine to compete with that one.
I like it. Smart. So as you'll see, I put some stuff already in here. So anything that's not already on here, I'm writing here. So take notes, write it down. So I already have large EMD and make part of it non-refundable. But if that's your thing, still say it. Where'd the mic go? Oh, you got it. All right.
I'm gonna guess this is not a competition, so I'm just gonna give the other thing that we didn't talk about yet.
Okay.
So I have been using a dumpster clause, which basically says that they do not have to deliver the property in broom swept condition, and they can leave any personal product or personal property that they don't want to take with them, and the purchaser will dispose of it on their behalf.
I love
And then, exactly, and then I tell my clients, because their question is usually, well, what if it's a disaster? And then I let them know, if it's a disaster, I will personally pay for the property to be professionally cleaned.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
Which cost you about how much money?
like $150.
Very nice.
Or if I don't feel like paying that, I'll get on my hands and knees. So here we go.
Yeah.
But I will say,
Find somebody that owes you one.
if your client is doing everything they can to get the house, then you need to be doing everything you can too. So
Yeah.
those are small things that make a big difference.
No, I like that as is, where is, like the dumpster clause. Like, hey, I know you just relocated, or, you know, we were talking with another group about like furniture that's built specifically for that house.
And just to add to that, we are working as an office on a standard clauses document. So that'll be available to you guys. So when you hear some of these clauses come up, that will be accessible. We're just getting it broker approved.
So because they're relocating, I think it might be kind of a bigger impact to say that you'll pay towards their moving costs instead of towards their closing cost. I know it will be basically the same thing as far as net, but because they have that relocation and they're going through that, it might be, you know, just a different verbiage to say that you'd be contributing X amount towards any type of moving costs, whether that's boxes or movers or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't want to get too deep into things like that are like just the way you phrase something or how you put it can sometimes like just break a seller's pattern. I don't know how many times I've written an offer, and instead of it for being for $350,000, it's for $350,362. And because the seller goes, why such a weird amount? And then they start questioning, and then they're like, they're stuck on it, and they can't stop looking at my client's offer. Right? So there's just like those interesting little things. How you phrase something does matter.
I think we also piggyback from what Ali said, we didn't get to talk about it, is to, if there's anything, if there's a garden or everybody can hear me.
I'll just say
If
it
there's
closer.
if there's a garden, or if there's a tree that, like, if there's someone, they put thought into the house, they love the house, obviously they may have done some customizations, is to put in the email, my buyers are really excited about taking over this garden. What exactly is planted that will bloom next year? Because I know when I left my house in Dallas, that was one of the things my buyers asked. And I was like, oh, they're gonna actually like take care of the raspberry bushes and the strawberries, and you know, so sometimes sellers do pick a little bit with that.
Oh, yeah. I have definitely written into a contract that in order for us to close on this property, I want the seller to provide my clients with a manual of like how to care for the landscaping, because clearly the seller put a lot of attention into it and we want to maintain its beauty. Okay, that group, middle group?
Majority of what we said was already said, but we said that just for a large EMD, just because if for some reason they're on a quick and they need to get out, they're relocating, they have that extra money to fall back on if they need to pay their mortgage or anything like that. If for some reason on the buyer side, we default or back out. And then, yeah, anything like if they are trying to move out and there's anything that they just want to leave, just leave it. And we had somebody do that and they left like a whole room with a bed, a dresser, like everything, because they just didn't want to take it out. So the more convenient you can make for the seller, the better, because you're now not only looking out for your best interest, but now it shows that you're looking out for theirs, and making it as convenient as possible for them.
Like it. Back to Ally to piggyback on something that Nick said.
If you run a team meeting on Tuesday, the Restore with Habitat for Humanity will pick up any unwanted furniture that you don't want. So if that is the case and you do have a whole bedroom set that you don't want, they'll take it. And it's tax deductible.
Every contract is as is whereas for me. I'm gonna partner with Habitat. Yeah, this other builder.
Go for it.
All right, so first we have strong EMD, partially non-refundable. We have a quick closing, flexible rent back, and relocation is where they can also leave items that would be picked up and disposed of. And what about the Henry left?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
We're also going to, we know this is a tough time for him and he didn't want to move. So we're going to write him a nice handwritten letter.
Nice.
Just kind of letting them know, hey, we know how tough this thing is for you, but you know, our clients will take care of that home just like it's our own, which it will be.
I love it. What's funny is I wrote in the scenario, like they hate that they're selling the home. You're the first person, so I'm going to write a letter. Right? Like context clues tell you what to do, right? So you gotta pay attention. Cool. All right. Come on.
A lot of the things that we want to put in the contract was already said, so we go to the questions. First, we want to know what do they love about the house. And depending on the answer from the seller or from the listing agent, we're going to try to make something personal about it. So if they love the sports team around there, we'll think about the sports team. If it's something specific about the house, we'll reference that. Do they need to rent back? Have they already found the next place? Is it far that they're relocating to? We decided that we will do a voucher up to probably about $2K for either moving or traveling costs, being that he's already going through the tough time of being at the house or leaving the house. And also another one is there a preferred lender? So if there's a preferred lender that will help get us over the top that they would rather use, we will consider it. And then the last question is, if we do everything to your seller's list liking, will they be willing to accept this this offer or this contract before whatever scheduled date y'all are ready to review?
So what are we calling it? Bully offers? Is that what I'm saying? I kind of hate that term. I really do. Like it puts such a negative spin on it when realistically it's like, you're just doing what's best for your client, right? And why can't we just call it strategic early offer?
Yeah.
Right? Cool. Nope, that's it. And then online, who's going to be your representative? Juanita?
Most of the things that we came up with, I think they've already been stated, but the main thing is to have the contract as clean as possible. When you look at it, you don't have any limits hardly on anything, even the interest rates, because you know interest rates are going up. You already know that, so you kind of build that in. So you don't put that today's interest rate that could cause a financing out. So the main thing is to have a clean contract, but also to ask the seller's agent, what's most important? And then if we want to win it, we gear our offer to what is most important. And then also we didn't really talk about it, but I have this situation, I think someone already mentioned it, about leaving some personal items. You always you see them with a dumpster right there. Well, you know, take that away. They don't have to do that. Leave them in there and you'll take care of it. I think that was pretty much it. Unless someone else that was on the call has something else.
Now, you bring up a really good point on fill out the entire contract. I know when I'm a listing agent and I look at it and like the financing contingency isn't filled out at all, like, what are they doing? Like, you send me a pre-approval letter and then I'm having to call the lender to see what's going on and what's happening and so forth. Like, that just gets frustrating. So fill out the entire contract. The things that I have on here, so I put leave the purchase price blank was one of them. So if you have a client, it's a little hot, you have to turn it down just a tiny bit. If you have a client who is willing to pay, you know, $20,000 over appraised value, like they have to be in a house. They're just like, we are down to the wire. We have to be in a house, or like, we want this house no matter what. This is our forever home. We're willing to pay $50,000 over the appraised value. We do not care. Write a clause in that says, hey, we're willing to cover a $50,000 appraised value. You write the purchase price in. You, the seller, write it in. Who doesn't love the idea of getting a blank check?
You're protecting them with the appraisal.
You're protecting them with the appraisal. You, the seller, tell me how much I'm paying for this house,
Right.
knowing that I'm willing to pay you $50,000 over the appraised value.
So they could write it for 500.
They could write it for 26 million.
Right.
That would actually be fun, a contract written for 26 million. Like, I mean, if I was a seller, I would totally do that.
Right.
Hey, I'm gonna accept your offer. We're gonna write it for $1 jillion. You know, because like, it doesn't matter. All that matters is we're waiting for the appraisal to come back and you're paying $50,000 above that, right? But for some reason, what seller wouldn't go, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, but it's getting the agent to understand it.
So you have to teach the agent what you're doing, right? So yes, that goes back to being able to teach the agent what you have to do. So yeah, lots of really good ideas this here, but I think the biggest takeaways that I see from all this is like, call the listing agent, have the conversation, get the context clues, ask what's important. Like, ask the question, what's the listing agent gonna tell you? They're either gonna tell you nothing, or some will tell you literally everything. There was one time I called the listing agent and he said, look, I've got 8 offers. If your clients come in at 540, they got the house. I said, great, I'll have it to you in 10 minutes. Like, literally, that was all I had to do. And I was like, need anything else? He goes, no, just make it 540. We're good to go. They don't care about appraisal or inspection. Okay.
And there is an addendum you can get signed to get permission from your sellers to do so. And we have started doing that for some of our clients. So it is not unheard of for that to happen. So it does matter to call a listing agent because more and more agents are starting to do that. We're protecting ourselves as listing agents by getting permission from the seller to do so. But there are some of us out there that are willing to share a little bit more terms than good luck and write an offer.
Oh no, I actually asked a listing agent one time, I said, hey, look, my people want this house. They're very serious about it. Can you do me a favor? Call the listing agent, or sorry, call your seller and get permission and see if you're like, he's willing to just let you tell me what you need and I'll give that to you. Like, we will beat it.
Yeah.
Just get it.
A couple of us missed that back here. Say that again, what you were asking him to do.
So there is an addendum that we can, I'm happy to share this because I got it from the right group from Kim.
It's a standard addendum, it's a checklist, and we actually walk through with our sellers and have them initial each spot that says, do you give me permission to share the number of offers we receive? Do you give me permission to share the highest terms we've received? Do you agree that we will review offers at a specified date, and so on and so forth? So we get the permission, going back to the expectations conversation, we get this permission at listing. So before we've even gone to the market. So then when it comes time to review these offers, I'm having conversations. Also similar to what Maria said, a lot of times you're just in competition with the top few offers in the offer or in the bidding war. So maybe it's Seth and 2 other agents that I'm then going back to and having conversations with. So I'm not calling all 45 offers and saying, here's what we have, here's what we have, here's what we have. We're going to the last couple that we've narrowed it down to and then having those conversations. But you do get it agreed to by the seller because it is confidential if you don't get it in writing and agreed to. So.
Are you saying we're gonna have a official addendum?
Yeah, we're working on that. That kind of came up in Tuesday's meeting as a need. There's a lot of, and Kristen just reminded me, we can add it so it's accessible by everybody through the transaction desk, but we're gonna start putting some of these standardized clauses and making you more aware of the forms that they exist. because RAR does a great job of putting these together for you because we are agents, we're not attorneys, so we shouldn't be writing this language. It is fill in the blank type stuff. That being said, there's going to be regular recurring contract classes, so come to those so you can learn about these addendums.
And Austin Heckle, perfect.
Yeah, and I'm teaching everyone.
So, but I think that brings up a good point. Is like one great question that you can ask is, hey, do you have permission to talk to me about what the other offers look like? Did your seller give you permission? Sometimes listing agents don't know that they can actually go get permission and then do it. And so I've asked, like, they go, no, I don't. It's like, hey, like my people really want this house. Would you mind calling your seller, getting that permission? And then let's circle back and you just tell me what I need to put in the offer.
Doesn't that obligate the listing agent to make the request to the seller? Because they have to present whatever is given to them. That's a presentation. Hey, can you get this information for me?
Well, I mean, the seller doesn't have to agree.
No,
to do
right,
it. Yeah.
right.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, yes, I want you to go to the seller. Like, I'll ask. Some listing agents won't do it. Like, what are you gonna do? Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
but ask the question, right? So we got a couple minutes here. What are other takeaways? Big takeaways, ahas.
A takeaway, but I just would love to spend a few minutes talking about,
What if they do not allow escalation clauses and how you navigate that in this market?
Yeah, great question. I was really hoping nobody would ask it. Maybe we should ask Austin that. No. So
I do have a good, I have a good response.
I'll let you respond. It's gonna be the same thing I.
Yeah, so we talked about this briefly on Tuesday in the broker meeting or broker moment. We ran out of time, but the code of ethics reads that your job as an agent is to take care of your client first, the public second, and the other agents or the other clients third, in that order. And it's prioritized in that order. So if you're a listing agent working with a seller, if I'm advising you as a broker, it's not in your best interest to deny or waive escalation addendums. So first point out there is don't do that. There are agents out there that will do it. And so kind of the Seth's point, it is about asking questions because maybe they'll tell you why they're doing that. More often than not, they're trying to make their job easier by saying, just give me your highest and best terms. And so that's where I would come back to having that expectations question with your client and saying, let's just put our best foot forward. Let's not leave anything up to chance. And maybe they're not willing to go quite as high because it's an escalation, because the escalation addendum isn't allowed. But that's where some of those other criteria are going to come into play.
You ask different questions to the listing agent if that's in the.
That's the first thing I'll ask. Why are you not accepting an escalation addendum?
And what if they said?
They'll start trying to tell me the seller requested none of them.
Yeah, and
that's a lie because the seller doesn't know what an escalation addendum is. Matter of fact, our escalation addendum has only been around since 2019, so I guarantee they don't know what it is. And so, yeah, a lot of times it rather than turning it into about that, I'll try to shift gears to figure out, okay, so you're telling me the highest price is not the most important thing to the seller. What is? And then I'll make them answer. Because especially when my dad's on the other line, because that's a lot of fun to have that conversation. But in all honesty, if they're not allowing escalation addendums, there's probably a reason for it. Whether it's a good one or not, you kind of have to just work. From a listing agent's perspective, you shouldn't be denying them.
Well, also too, like, it is you as an agent, if you're a listing agent and you say, oh, we're not doing escalation addendums, and somebody sends one in, you have to present it as is. And so, I mean, I've done that before. Like I've had someone, and sometimes they'll tell you that too, of like, oh, we're not doing escalation addendums. And the reason why is because like they only have one other offer and they're just trying to give you a crazy number. And so again, context clues, you got to read into them a little bit. And so that's another great question that I ask you. I go, oh, well, if you're not taking escalation addendums, then that tells me that maybe the price might not be the most important thing for your seller. So what is? And they go, oh, no, it is price. Okay, so an escalation addendum would work fine.
So was it successful when you sent it in?
Oh yeah, we won.
You did.
I was 50-50. I had two this year, one we won, one we did not win. We didn't win because the other offer was higher. So even though we still put an escalation addendum in, it didn't matter.
Oh no, it would be my exact situation was that there was only one other offer and it was at list price, and I was like, look, we'll give you $5,000 more. Like my client's fine to give you $5,000 more. And so we did it. Like a lot of it is just like, you got to talk. Yeah. Cool. We're 2 minutes past. I apologize, but I hope you learned something. I hope you have a system now for like being able to go make offers, multiple offers, so forth. If you want my contact information because you don't have it, you can scan this QR code and then save it. Happy to help however I can. Thank you.